Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Prepared. Hey, before I get into this Trump being taken off the ballot in Colorado, important because it's the headline, let me tell you about my buddy Andy Stumpf. He's doing well. And a lot of people have been asking me, been asking Andy if he's okay. He's in and out of social media and all the things, and a lot of people have expressed their concern and sent their prayers. That's awesome. Appreciate you guys. On the last Cleared Hot podcast, which is linked down below, we were able to post up the interview that I had with him for Mike Force podcast and double down on the effort. You know, we're very thankful to sponsors like Black Rifle Coffee that allow us to do this kind of thing. It's the reason we're able to do these kind of things for you guys. But that podcast is real cool because it's me interviewing him about his career, which, you know, he's done on Rogan, he's done on Black Rifle's podcast, he's done on my podcast, but we never really got down in the weeds and did a Q&A about his career. I think that's like a part 1, part 2, etc. To fill the gap for Cleared Hot podcast, we'll be releasing Focal Point, which is me and Andy's pet project on releasing these segments and these conversations and provoking your critical thinking on the subject matter. Not telling you what to think, but telling you how to think, and talking about important subjects like AI, like the downfall of man, all these things that are important to us that we talk about in Focal Point. That will be released, as well as the first episode of Focal Point leading into the new year. That first episode is going to drop on the Focal Point YouTube channel, which you can find linked down below. Guys, Andy told me to tell you he's doing well. He's healing up. He had some issues, which I'll let him tell his personal information about how he went through that. But it's going to be a quick road to recovery for him, and he'll be back in the fight in no time. Guys, let's talk about this Trump situation. Look, he was taken off the ballot in a vote 4-3, where he won't be on the ballot to vote if you're a Republican looking to vote for him. Now, that sets a new legal precedent that's never been done in American history, where they cited the 14th Amendment. Now, I want to read a little bit as a notation about the 14th Amendment because I want you to understand the details of this. There was a ratification in 1868 of the 14th Amendment that called for born or naturalized in the United States, including formerly enslaved people, and provided all citizens with equal protection under the laws. Now, there was an additional amendment that was made that stated anybody engaged in insurrection against the United States were barred from holding any civil, military, or elected office without the approval of 2/3 of the House and Senate. Now, they voted in Colorado 4-3 that they weren't going to have on the ballot because they're calling Trump an insurrectionist. Now, the reason this sets a legal precedent is because the decentralized state of Colorado against the federal government has basically said, we've determined in our own way that he was an insurrectionist. Now, this is unique because there have been no legal charges where it led to a conviction for Trump. Now, everybody's saying right now this is going to be overturned. With Colorado only having 10 electoral votes, period, and him likely going to lose Colorado anyways, that's the excuse to kind of just write it off, except we should never write this off. Now, in the underground, I'm going to talk about specifically why we shouldn't write this off and where we should be fighting against this, especially when it comes to Biden, his son Hunter, and all the convolution of his relationship as VP and his illegal dealings with the businesses of his son and foreign powers like China. I'll talk about in the underground because I'll get suppressed and banned on here if I'm not already suppressed as it is. Guys, this is going to set precedent leaning forward where more states, because of the recipe, will likely do the same thing and kicking him off the ballot, citing the 14th Amendment and these additional amendments, including the provisions. Now, that's a huge problem. Why would that be a problem? Well, if you're a Republican, maybe an independent who wanted to vote for Trump, because Trump, by every single poll, even the liberal polls, is leading profoundly over Biden, who at a record 34%, the lowest approval record in history for Biden, 34%. He's leading in every poll. And if you want to vote for him and he's taken off the ballot, how do you think that's going to make hardliners feel or independents feel when they can't vote for their specific candidate? Now, there's a thought here. You could just write into the ballot Trump on the write-ins. But I don't know if, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert on this. If you know, please leave it down below in the comments. I don't think you could write in somebody on the ballot who's been banned from the ballot because of insurrection, citing the 14th Amendment. So you won't even be able to write them in because technically they can't serve, right? They've been barred from service because of the insurrection against the United States, and they can't serve in a civil, military, or political capacity. So that's a huge issue when it comes to our freedoms and rights as civilians. So you want to see civil unrest? We're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't here. Half of the country, specifically the action arms of the leftist, are doing everything necessary to keep him off the ballot. I'm not seeing that really from the right. And as an independent, as a libertarian, I'm looking at this going, holy crap. We are in a more volatile race than we've ever been. And 2024 is going to be super interesting. Now, if you've seen this, you've seen the lead up of all the volatility that we've talked about, including on the last episode of Focal Point that will be released this week, where we talk about AI, the escalation of civil unrest because of AI, all the use of cyber technology to destroy us as a country, being huge consumers, the largest consumers in the world, with no bars, no restrictions, even where the Chinese government bans and restricts their own children from using TikTok too much. We don't care. We have an open door swing policy where like whatever happens, consume as much as you want, which is truly affecting our society, especially when it comes to division. So this new movie called Civil War, it comes out in April, in late April, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Right? I talked about it when we talk about Leave the World Behind, but let's roll the trailer so you can see a little bit about this movie, Civil War.
15 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well.
The three-term president assures the uprising.
Are you guys aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America?
We just try to stay out with what we see on the news.
Citizens of America.
The so-called Western forces of Texas and California
Have suffered a very great defeat.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens?
We're moving to D.C. today. We're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
God bless America.
One, it's exciting to see just how this kind of plays out and you know how the movie depicts certain elements of potential civil unrest and the prediction of civil unrest. I mean, this isn't new. I mean, Wolverines, right? Like we've had depictions in Hollywood where we thought the country would lead. Some of them even come into fruition and come true. So when we look at Leave the World Behind, I talked about it in the last episode, you have Barack and Michelle Obama consulting in the production of this. I'm not specifically sure where they consulted, likely in the racial prejudice, which had nothing to do with the storyline of the EMP and the cyber attack, but maybe because they have a lot of insight, being the president and the first lady of the United States of America, that they have insider information of the threats, especially in national security, to this country. Guys, we just set a legal precedent this week on the border of our country where nobody's paying attention. I didn't see that headline in corporate media anywhere, where I was tweeting about 12,000 people coming across the border, setting a record. Before I could even get the tweet out, the analytics from the next day caught up at 14,509. I mean, what? If you're looking at national security loopholes, well, they found one. And so if you're not paying attention, all these things are coming to fruition. And I don't want to paint the picture of doom and gloom, but it's where fiction meets reality. It's where conspiracy theory meets reality. And that's a huge problem. I mean, there's a lot of predictive things to see there. I talked about it in November prior to the pandemic happening, where I watched a Bill Gates documentary, which you likely watched. And then I said, man, if Bill Gates is talking about this, might be something we want to look into, especially how to react appropriately as individuals, as families, as communities, not as a government, but should we be prepared, better prepared for a potential pandemic? You know what I got? A lot of hate. People calling me a fearmonger, like that would never happen. I even saw, this is very funny, because I did that post in November prior to the pandemic happening, I even saw people going back and deleting their comments from that post. The same people who are like, you're a fearmonger, that would never happen, and deleting that because they didn't want to be in the wrong. To each their own. We see it on the back end, you deleting the comments. But I'm just saying, it doesn't take a conspiracy theorist, it doesn't take a science degree to see all the predictability and what's happening leading to the worst case scenario. In April, this will launch. Division will be at an all-time high. Even if Trump wins, which by all predictive measures and polls, he will win. If he's taken off the ballot, he likely won't win. And then if Biden actually gets impeached, he likely won't run. Where does this lead us? Well, if you're prepared, into an exciting 2024. If you're not, kind of your worst case scenario. Off to the underground. I'm going to talk about this in the underground when it comes to the specifics of this and what we could do to get ahead of it. I just can't talk about those things now. Big shout out to my patrons who support the channel. I provide tier 1 content for those guys because of all the value proposition we offer for them, that they're reciprocating in value for us. I appreciate you guys. You can see the link down below, patreon.com/Mike Glover. When it comes to EMPs, we talk about EMP all the time. I'm having an AI cyber EMP conference in April at Fieldcraft HQ in Provo, Utah. Why? Well, yes, we talk about EMPs. It's one of those things theoretically that there's a lot of information out there on what it potentially could do, just not a lot of factual information because it's literally never happened outside of the test we did in the 50s and 60s. Now, when you look at the tests like Operation Argus, and you see us testing these electromagnetic fields and what it does to electronics, even when we realize what it would do, we stop releasing the information, and a lot of that information is classified. There are reports on specifically what it does, including surgeon circuitry and electronics, small handheld devices, vehicles, medical devices, all the things. I mean, I talked about this with airplanes. Like, the airplane won't fall out of the sky, but there are no airplanes that run independently on manual processes, on cables, that are commercially ran. So commercially, if it's flying a lot of people, which that's a commercial aircraft, and it's in production, and it's in a cycle and operation, it is tethered to electronics, which likely when shut down would force the potential crash of those airplanes. Now, there's manual override processes. There's ways to get them on the ground, but imagine the chaos and calamity when air traffic control can't even communicate because the communication infrastructure has been shut down. Why should you pay attention to it? Well, you know, I put it out there. Like, if you pick up what I'm laying down, I hope you pay attention because it could happen. I have a 1970 Porsche that is carbureted. It's a 1970 911T. There are literally no electronic devices except for the 12-volt system that runs the illumination and gauges inside the vehicle. Everything tethered to the engine is a mechanical process. It's why I'm building a Volkswagen Synchro that is EMP proof. I'm actually going to do an EMP proof vehicle. One of the ways that you could mitigate your risk is, one, understanding that if you're not running electronics, that the surge of electromagnetic field that goes through it won't potentially damage a lot of the circuitry if there's no power going to it. But most electronics run passively. We're building an EMP-proof vehicle, probably for SEMA for next year, hopefully with Camberg Racing. And yeah, it's going to be a highly electronic vehicle, and it's going to be very complicated, but we're going to try to figure it out. And also, I'm going to test that for you guys. Check out the conference in April because I'll have all the experts there. Big brains. I'm dumb when it comes to it. I'm just regurgitating what other people are saying, but I'm doing my best. Those experts will be there to answer your questions, including guys like Joe Kent, who's an intelligence expert, Heather, his wife, who's an intelligence expert, and many more that will be there to talk about cyber, AI, and EMP. Also, January 20th is our conference on communications where, look, I want you to understand that communications is the lifeline of everything that you are in preparedness. If you don't have the ability to communicate, you can't run logistics. You can't run security. You can't run your own contingencies. You have to be able to communicate. EMP will likely affect the infrastructure. you need the contingencies. Whether that's a ham radio, GMRS, some wavelength, throwing antennas in trees, you got to figure it out. We'll have the experts, including Josh Noss of Ham Radio Crash Course. You can check his link down below. I love his channel. We've done a lot of videos with him in survival communications. And guess who's coming? Evan Hafer of Black Rifle Coffee is teaching a block because he's an 18 Echo, an SF communications sergeant who knows a lot about that kind of stuff. Guys, I got a message from one of my followers on my Instagram. He DM'd me about saving a life because he had a trauma kit. And he said, I'm not sure you keep up with this, but you helped save a life yesterday. I haven't saved a life. But he said because he listened to podcasts and our lifestyle, he carried it for years. He had a buddy of his who was a coworker who got his arm caught in some kind of contraption. And if he didn't have a tourniquet to save his life, that guy likely would have bled out right there and died. Guys, it's the basic things. We're not just setting up ourselves for the worst case scenario, the apocalypse. We're setting up ourselves up for everyday situations where that worst case scenario could happen to you. That's why we did the Fieldcraft Survival app and worked very hard. Everything from med mobility to Amber and family preparedness. It's available everywhere where apps are found. If you get that, download all the information, because if you have a solar powered capability, you could still watch it on your dumb device that doesn't have a connection with the internet. You can still get all that content and everything preparedness wise. Kyle Cooper and Mike Hernandez just got back from a moto trip because we're going to double down on some of this moto content because we want to get this stuff out to you guys. It's why I started Fieldcraft Survival, why I'm still passionate every single day about making you better prepared. It's why I'm doing this show. The reason I'm doing this show is also because of the support from Patreon members on my Patreon account. Without your support, I wouldn't be doing it. So I want to say thank you to my Patreons, and we're off to the underground. Thanks, guys. Peace out.